Close your eyes for a moment. Think back to the most embarrassing thing that has ever happened to you. Maybe it was years ago. Maybe you said the wrong thing in front of an entire classroom. Maybe you called your teacher mom. Maybe you waved back at someone, only to realize they were waving at the person behind you. Maybe you confidently told a joke that nobody laughed at. Or perhaps you replay the moment after a first date, convinced you sounded awkward, strange, or completely ridiculous. Now notice what just happened. Within seconds, your heart rate probably changed. Your shoulders became slightly tense. You could almost see the scene again, as if it were happening right now. That's strange, isn't it? Because none of those events are happening anymore. The room is safe, nobody is judging you. Most of the people who witnessed that moment have probably forgotten it completely, yet somehow your brain hasn't, and that's the mystery. Out of the thousands of ordinary moments you've lived, why does your mind insist on replaying that one? Why can you barely remember what you had for lunch 3 days ago, but you can vividly relive something embarrassing from 10 years ago? Most people have a simple explanation. My brain just likes to torture me. It certainly feels that way. You're trying to fall asleep. Suddenly, without warning, that memory appears, not because you wanted it to, not because it helps you, it simply arrives again and again until eventually you start believing there's something wrong with you, that maybe you're overthinking, too sensitive, or simply unable to let things go. But what if none of those explanations are true? What if your brain isn't replaying those memories to make you suffer, but because it's trying to solve a problem that it believes is still unfinished? That idea changes everything. Because your brain doesn't experience the past the way a photo album does. It doesn't store memories simply so you can revisit them later. Instead, your brain treats every important experience as data, a lesson, a prediction, a guide for what to do the next time something similar happens. Imagine touching a hot stove as a child. The pain lasts only a few seconds, but the lesson can last a lifetime. Your brain doesn't preserve that memory because it enjoys remembering pain. It preserves it because remembering pain increases your chances of avoiding it in the future. Embarrassment works in a surprisingly similar way. Humans evolved as deeply social creatures. For most of our history, survival depended on belonging to a group. Being rejected wasn't just emotionally painful. It could reduce your chances of finding food, protection, or even a mate. Modern life is very different. Forgetting someone's name during a meeting isn't going to threaten your survival. Neither is stumbling over your words during a presentation. Yet, your brain was shaped by millions of years of evolution. Not by modern office culture. It still treats social mistakes as information worth remembering. Not because every awkward moment is dangerous, but because your brain would rather overestimate a social threat than underestimate one. And here's the first twist. Your brain isn't trying to remember your embarrassment. It's trying to prevent your next one. Every replay is, in a sense, a rehearsal, a simulation, a quiet attempt to answer a single question. If something like this happens again, how can we avoid making the same mistake? At first, that sounds almost comforting, until you realize something unexpected. If your brain is trying to help, why does replaying these memories so often make you feel worse instead of better? Why do some embarrassing moments fade away within days, while others seem capable of following you for years? The answer has almost nothing to do with the memory itself. It has everything to do with something your brain does every single time you remember it. Because here's the part almost nobody realizes. You're not simply remembering the past. Every time that memory returns, your brain quietly opens it, changes it, and stores it again, which means the memory you've been reliving for years may no longer be the memory that actually happened. It may have become something else entirely. And once you understand how your brain rewrites your most embarrassing moments, you'll never trust those memories in quite the same way again. Think about your favorite movie. If you've watched it 10 times, you probably assume you've seen exactly the same film every single time. Memories don't work like that. Every time you remember an event, your brain doesn't simply open a perfectly preserved recording. It rebuilds the experience, piece by piece, like reconstructing an old photograph from scattered fragments. For years, neuroscientists believed that once a memory was stored, it remained largely unchanged. Today, we know that's not quite true. When an important memory is recalled, It briefly becomes flexible again before being stored once more, a process known as memory reconsolidation. That means every time you replay an embarrassing moment, you're not just visiting it, you're editing it. Without realizing it, your brain can strengthen certain details, fade others away, or even attach new emotions that weren't there in the beginning. Imagine spilling coffee during a presentation. The moment itself lasts only a few seconds. People laugh politely. The meeting moves on. By the next day, almost everyone has forgotten it, but not you. That night, you replay the scene. You imagine everyone thinking you looked incompetent. The next week, you remember it again. Now you're convinced they must have judged you. Months later, the memory feels even more painful than it originally did, not because the event changed, because the story surrounding it did. And here's the strange part. Your brain isn't lying to you on purpose. It's trying to make sense of incomplete information. Human memory has never been designed to function like a video camera. It's designed to help you predict the future. Whenever details are missing, your brain fills in the gaps using assumptions, emotions, and past experiences. Sometimes those assumptions are accurate. Very often, they aren't. Which brings us to another psychological trap almost everyone falls into. It's called the spotlight effect. Imagine walking into a room wearing a shirt with a small stain on it. You feel certain everyone notices. You spend the entire day trying to hide it. But if you asked every person in that room later, most wouldn't even remember what you were wearing. Researchers have repeatedly found that people consistently overestimate how much others notice and remember their mistakes. Why? Because you're living inside your own mind. Your mistakes occupy the center of your attention. To everyone else, they're just one tiny moment in a day filled with their own worries. And that's the irony. While you're lying awake, replaying something you said 5 years ago, the other person is probably lying awake, replaying one of their embarrassing moments. Instead, not yours. The brain has another habit that quietly makes all of this worse. Psychologists call it the negativity bias. From an evolutionary perspective, remembering danger was far more valuable than remembering comfort. For our ancestors, forgetting where they found delicious berries might have meant missing a meal. Forgetting where the predator was hiding could have meant not surviving long enough to have another meal at all. As a result, our brains became especially sensitive to experiences that carried emotional weight, particularly negative ones. Embarrassment belongs in that category, not because every awkward moment is life-threatening, but because your brain treats social rejection as something worth paying attention to. It's constantly asking, could this happen again? Did we miss something? Is there a lesson we still haven't learned? The problem is, sometimes there isn't a lesson. Sometimes you simply tripped, misspoke, forgot a name, or laughed at the wrong moment. Nothing more. But your brain doesn't like unfinished questions. So it keeps searching and replaying, hoping the next replay will finally produce an answer. Instead, it often produces something else entirely, something far more powerful than the memory itself, a belief about who you are. And once that happens, you're no longer remembering a single embarrassing moment. You're beginning to build an identity around it. That's where the real danger begins. And that's where the story changes. Because the most damaging part of an embarrassing memory isn't the memory itself. It's the identity that slowly grows around it. Think about it. One awkward presentation becomes, I'm terrible at public speaking. One failed relationship becomes, I'm not good enough. One embarrassing conversation becomes, people must think I'm weird. Notice what happened? Your brain quietly replaced an event with a conclusion. A single moment became a permanent label. Psychologists sometimes refer to this as overgeneralization, a cognitive distortion where the mind draws broad conclusions from isolated experiences. It's one of the reasons embarrassing memories can become so powerful, not because they accurately describe who you are, but because your brain starts treating them as evidence of who you have always been. And once a belief like that takes root, something remarkable begins to happen. Your brain starts looking for proof. If you believe you're awkward, you'll notice every awkward moment. You'll ignore the hundreds of conversations that went perfectly fine. If you believe people are judging you, you'll remember every strange look, You'll completely miss every smile, every compliment, every normal interaction. Not because your brain wants to deceive you, but because that's how attention works. It naturally searches for information that matches what you already believe. In other words, the memory is no longer controlling you. The belief built from the memory is. But here's the final plot twist. If memories can be rewritten, then beliefs can be rewritten too, not by pretending the past never happened, not by forcing yourself to think positive, and certainly not by trying to erase embarrassing moments from your mind. Ironically, the harder you try not to think about a memory, the more likely it is to return. Psychologists have demonstrated this repeatedly. When people are instructed not to think about something, like the famous example of a white bear, they often end up thinking about it even more. Your brain interprets suppression as a signal that the thought must be important, so it keeps bringing it back. Instead of asking, "How do I stop remembering this?" a better question is, "What is my brain trying to protect me from?" Sometimes the answer is rejection. Sometimes it's failure. Sometimes it's simply the fear of looking foolish. And once you identify the fear beneath the memory itself often begins to lose its power. Because the brain isn't looking for perfection, it's looking for safety. The moment it realizes you're no longer in danger, it gradually stops sounding the alarm. Now think back to the memory you pictured at the very beginning of this video. The awkward conversation, the embarrassing mistake, the moment that still makes you cringe years later. Ask yourself something. If your best friend had made that exact same mistake, would you judge them as harshly as you've judged yourself? Probably not. You'd laugh. Tell them it wasn't a big deal and move on. Yet somehow, you've never offered yourself the same kindness. The truth is, most people aren't carrying your embarrassing moments around in their heads. They're carrying their own, just like you. Because everyone is the main character in their own story. Very few people spend much time replaying someone else's. But your brain doesn't automatically know that. It has to learn it. And every time you respond to an old memory with curiosity instead of shame, every time you replace self-judgment with a more balanced interpretation, every time you remind yourself, that was something I experienced, not someone I am, you're teaching your brain a new lesson. Not by erasing the past, but by changing what the past means. Maybe that's the real purpose of memory, not to trap us inside yesterday, but to help us become wiser tomorrow. So the next time your brain unexpectedly replays an embarrassing moment, don't ask, "Why can't I let this go?" Ask instead, "What lesson? Is my brain still trying to learn?" Because memories don't define you, they educate you, and once the lesson has truly been learned, even the loudest memory eventually becomes quiet.